Ash Ketchum has been a star of the Pokemon anime for 27 years, and although it was a bittersweet ending for this character when he finally became the Pokemon Master he promised himself he'd become, in the 8 different regions he held many different powerful Pokemon. So which is his most powerful Pokemon? Starting from Kanto, of course, because I want to not only look at the odd few Pokemon like Greninja or Pikachu, I want to look at each region. Very quick disclaimer when I talk about these, I am completely excluding Pikachu because he is just so overpowered for what he is. And let's be honest, he does take up the #1 spot anyway. I mean, let's be honest, the Kanto team wasn't the best we've ever seen, with the main sort of lineup being Pikachu, Pidgeot, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charizard and Muk. It could have had some serious improvements, and when I say that, I mean Squirtle or Bulbasaur could have evolved at least once. With the obvious strongest Pokemon in this team being Charizard, it's a very obvious attempt at balancing out the team, because not only did Charizard have a great character arc and grow as a Pokemon, but it also kind of helped Ash grow too. Starting as a lost Charmander, then as a disobedient Charmeleon, then finally an even more disobedient Charizard, who eventually got its head straight and became more or less the most powerful Pokemon on the team. Obviously throughout Kanto we see Ash catch so many Pokemon and use many other Pokemon, but Charizard was very clearly an obvious choice to have in the final battles. In the Johto region, Ash catches many other Pokemon again, ranging from owning all 3 starters as well as a shiny Noctowl. But out of all the Pokemon he's caught in this region, although Heracross was an easy option for a strong Pokemon showing its impressive skills throughout the show, Charizard once again does come back as the most powerful in this team, as he was brought back in this region due to his strength and the fact Ash needed a powerful Pokemon to at least have some sort of chance at winning. Because once again, this team wasn't exactly the greatest, and in this season Ash did very strategically rotate his Pokemon to give himself the upper hand. It's probably a good thing too, because I really can't see Totodile doing a whole lot of damage, or just doing too well in the long run. Ash's team in Hoenn is different, as there was no changeouts. It was a team he built completely from scratch, including Sceptile, who's the obvious strong Pokemon in this situation. Evolving all the way from a Trico, it had its complete life almost with Ash, training for this spot specifically. It was a very impressive Pokemon who, in the Sinnoh region, returned slightly just to defeat Darkrai, which is just outright amazing in general, especially since it's stated that no other Pokemon in the Sinnoh region has defeated Darkrai. And don't get me wrong, Swallow came in a very close second as a powerful asset to this team. The Sinnoh region is easily one of my favourite teams. The entire team of Pokemon are extremely powerful, starting from Weasel, who has always been a battle lover, and finishing up at Infernape, who was extremely overpowered but was also just incredible. We were introduced to Chimchar pretty early on as a Pokemon of Paul's, who later on in the series, after some pretty hefty abuse from Paul, Ash took in and trained. And clearly he did something right, because Infernape ended being almost a sole carrier for this team, especially with its fantastic ability Blaze. Obviously all the Pokemon in this team were very powerful and were definitely helpful in Ash's journey. I mean, Ash's Torterra has been extremely powerful even from when it was a Turtwig. The Unova region was never really my favourite when it came to a rewatch, but Ash's team was definitely interesting, with a bunch of other Pokemon and once again with him having some starters in his team. However, with Tepig evolving into a Pignite, you would have thought he would have been the obvious choice, right? However, Pignite just wasn't the most powerful in this team, let's be honest. It was instead Crocodile, who not only had a great personality but was also able to defeat Iris's Dragonite, which is pretty impressive in itself. Caught initially as a Crocrug and had a ton of training with Ash, unlike his other Pokemon such as Scraggy, who were just definitely undertrained. Well, if you ask me anyway. Not only was he one of the only Pokemon in the Unova region that Ash had that had fully evolved, it gave incredibly strong performances and was not only powerful but had an incredible personality. Obviously coming in with a close second was actually Pignite, but mostly because of the sad backstory. The Kalos region is such a favourite for me. The team is almost perfect and the animation was probably at its peak here too. With all of his Pokemon being fully evolved, it's a sight to see and the battles were all so enjoyable. Whereas all Pokemon showed huge potential to be powerful such as Talonflame and Noivern, and maybe even Goodra, Greninja is such an obvious. I mean, Ash and his bond basically made a brand new Mega Evolution. Ash Greninja was just truly incredible, extremely powerful and breathtaking to see. I mean, it basically took on Ash's appearance in some ways, you know? If not for the coolness effect, Ash Greninja is just downright strong, beating a Mega Abomasnow and a Mega Sceptile despite the obvious type disadvantage, and sadly losing to a Mega Charizard, but only by a slide. Ash Greninja has also been titled to possibly be one of Ash's strongest Pokemon ever, not to mention that this Greninja was one of a kind and no other Greninja was like this, originating from a very strong-willed Froakie and finally into an all-powerful Greninja was definitely a sight to see. The Alola region was definitely hard for me to watch, a very fun region but difficult for me to get into, but once I did it was actually quite fun. Not only was Incineroar pretty powerful, and of course big credit to Lycanroc with its uniqueness of course, but his most powerful Pokemon was Melmetal, a mythical Pokemon Ash caught as a Meltan. Of course only appeared quite later on in the seasons, but was still an extremely powerful and a good asset to the team. Ash's final region was the Galar region. He had some pretty impressive Pokemon in this region too, having Lucario, Dragonite and a Gengar. But the obvious for the most powerful Pokemon was indeed Lucario, having it since a Riolu and even an egg, and then adding on to a Mega Stone. Yeah, it's pretty powerful. Even going as far as to successfully defeat Cynthia's Garchomp, who, if we remember correctly, was a champion in the Sinnoh League. All in all, a truly brilliant Pokemon and a definite favourite of mine. I mean, of course, out of all of Ash's Pokemon, Pikachu easily comes out on top, being able to defeat many Pokemon and learning some pretty exclusive moves too. I mean, it's almost cheating having him at the beginning of some regions. And then of course Greninja being a very solid second with its exclusive and also powerful form. And in third place is Lucario with its very obvious Mega Evolved state. Let's just say some of Ash's teams haven't exactly been the strongest and there definitely could have been some improvement somewhere.